Morning, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters and the Pathfinder School, back out here at the Pathfinder Outdoor Classroom. What I want to talk to you guys about today is the basics of pace counting, because I put up a couple videos lately, short videos, on a set of lanyard pacing beads that I made for my Swiss Army knife. In fact, I can show them to you. They're in my pocket right now because it's my EDC. They are the same length as my Swiss Army knife, basically. We'll talk about those in a few minutes. At any rate, they brought up the question, what is pace counting? Why would you pace count? You know, what are pace counting beads? And you kind of assume that some of that stuff is basic knowledge, but then you always have to realize that there's new people watching videos all the time that are new to the outdoors that don't understand these concepts. Even though it's one of the things that we teach here at the basic level course, our basic survival course, doesn't mean that it's common knowledge. So I thought we'd get back to the roots a little bit here and talk about pace counting for a minute. And maybe even if you understand pace counting, you may pick up a tip or trick along the way with this video. So first of all, what is pace counting? Why would you pace count? And what is pace count used for navigational purposes? So pace counting is used to understand the distance between 2 points that you are walking. In other words, how far you have walked between those 2 points. If you're using a map for navigation, you're going to plan some type of route from, say, your camp. You may plan a route that takes you to, let's say, a pond that you're going to fish in. And that route may be here to here, it may be here to here, whatever the route may be. Each one of these routes or legs is a certain distance in meters on the map. And understanding how far you've walked becomes important so that you know when to change your direction, shoot another azimuth, and change your bearing of travel while you're traveling. It's also very important if you do not have a map and you're making a map of the area because you didn't bring one with you and you're new to that location and you're using the PAL methodology, positive azimuth uniform layout, to number one, find your way back from here to here without having to backtrack, and B, to be able to plot this on a piece of paper so that you can create your own map over time of an area that you're operating in, say a hunting camp or something like that, a trap line, for instance. All those types of things would apply to this. So pace counting is important for navigation in and of itself. Now, the question is, let me erase this real quick. The question is, what is pace counting and how do you accomplish that? Well, it's not just counting every pace as far as you have to walk. That's not what it's about. What it's about is using a pace counting device in conjunction with your pace count as a calculator or abacus to track the meters that you've walked, or the hundreds of meters that you've walked, or the kilometers that you've walked, getting from one point to another. So that brings us to, how do we figure our pace count? The way we figure our pace count is we lay out a 100-meter distance. You could do that with 100 meters of rope. You could do that with 100-meter tape. And you lay it from one end to the other, and you count your paces, and that's full paces, not partial pace. So if I step off with my left foot, then my right foot is a full pace, because that's going to be a full pace, not a half pace. The first step is a half. The next step is a full pace. That's what I'm counting. So I take that 100 meters and I count those paces. I do this with my pack on that I plan to wear when I'm walking, wherever I'm operating at, or wherever I'm hunting, fishing, trapping, whatever the case may be, or just hiking. I wear the pack that I'm going to be wearing. That's important. I also check my pace count in different types of terrain and different conditions. So wet ground, dry ground, flat ground, uphill, downhill, uneven terrain, things like that, so that I can get a series of pace count numbers in those different types of terrain and average them out to give me an average pace count over multiple types of terrain and conditions. And once I get that average pace count, let's just say that's 64 paces for 100 meters. That's my pace count. If I understand that, then I understand that every pace I take is 1.5 meters, because 100 meters divided by my pace count is 1.5 meters per pace. I can use that later to convert pace count back to meters on a map. For now, it's just simple math for us to understand. Now, Once I've established my pace count, then I need to use these pacing beads, okay? So a pace counting device is basically a calculator that will keep track of 5 kilometers of total distance walked before we have to start over again. And this one is set up in meters. You can also have them set up in miles. We use meters here at the Pathfinder School because everything is divisible by 10, and it makes it much easier to learn and teach. So our maps here at the Pathfinder School are 1 to 10,000 scale. And with every grid square on any map being 1 kilometer, if it's a 1 to 10,000 scale, that makes every centimeter on that map 100 meters. 10 centimeters across and down a grid square, 10 by 10, 1,000 meters. And you can break that easily down into 100 meter squares because it's all divisible by 10. Same thing with pace counting. If we break that down into 10, then we only need 9 beads on one side and 4 beads on the other to track 5 kilometers of walking. So how does that work? We would take 9 beads, and it doesn't matter if they're on the top of the string or the bottom. Inconsequential, as long as they're broke up 9 and 4. We put all of the beads at the top of whatever our stopping point is. And we begin to walk. And we're not walking slow while we're doing this. We're walking the same normal pacing that we would have done when we checked our pace count, if that's possible. If for some reason we can't walk at that speed, then we need to understand that our pace count probably is going to be farther than we think it is for 100 meters. You get used to that as you do it. So how this works is I count my paces till I get to 100 meters. And then I drop one of these 9 beads to the bottom, and that signifies I've now walked 100 meters, and I start that pace count again. So now I'm only counting to 64 instead of counting if I'm walking 3 or 4K, counting to 3,000 and losing track somewhere along the line. I only have to keep track to 64 paces. When I walk another 64 paces, I drop another bead, and now I've traveled 200 meters. When I get all 9 of these beads to the bottom, on the very next pace count of 100 meters, I drop one of the 4 beads down, and I move the 9 back up to the top, and now I've walked 1 kilometer. If I have 2 beads down, now I've walked 1 kilometer and 200 meters. And it keeps going. And 1 kilometer, 500 meters, 700 meters, 900 meters. And then 2 kilometers, and I move the 9 back up again. And when I get all 4 of these beads to the bottom, and I've got all 9 of these beads at the bottom, on the next pace count, I will have walked 5 kilometers. So that's the way a set of pacing beads works. And these pacing beads, you can make them yourself with any kind of bead you want to. This is another set of pacing beads that's made with black beads. It's a little longer than this one is. The length and things like that vary depending on who makes the pacing beads. You make them yourself, you can dictate that, as long as there's enough space for you to move beads and see a visible space between them. So when I created this pace lanyard, I wanted to make it about the same size as my Swiss Army knife, so that A, it was a lanyard for my knife, and B, it was multifunctional to be a pace counting device. So I've got 9 beads that are very small, but they're made of rubber, so they're indestructible. I can visibly see the movement of those beads. I've got enough space for that. And I've got 4 and 9 so that I can track 5 kilometers of walking. And they're attached to a clip so that if I wanted to, I could take them off the knife, clip them to my shirt pocket or to my gear, because normally what you'll see is pace beads will be attached to a backpack strap like this when you're walking. Now I can just clip this right to my backpack strap if I want to, or clip it to my pocket button if I need to, the buttonhole in my pocket if I want to, or I can just put it right back on my knife and it's my lanyard again. So it's a multifunctional piece of kit that I've been working on for Self-Reliance Outfitters to be able to sell in our store in green and orange for those that don't want to make a set of pacing beads and want a simple set of indestructible pace beads. And that's kind of one of the things I've found is you buy these pace counting apparatus, these pace beads, and the beads are made out of plastic most of the time. And they will break if you drop your backpack on the rocks or you step on them or something like that where your backpack's on the ground. You can break these beads. These beads are indestructible because they're made of rubber. So there's no way you're gonna tear this thing up. And most of the time it's gonna be in your pocket, not just hanging off your pack unless you're actually using it. So it's not in the way at all as well. So Pace counting is a very simple concept. It's also a very basic level concept and something that you should definitely understand if you're navigating with or without a map and you plan to either keep track of what you're doing or using a map and you need to know the distance that you've walked to get from point A to point B, or when you need to change direction. Now, there's lots of tools that you can use in conjunction with pace counting to help your navigation be more accurate. I've got some videos on that in my navigational playlist, and we teach all of those things here at the Pathfinder School between the basic, intermediate class and the navigation intensive class, as well as the advanced. We teach all of those navigational concepts to make you like a master navigator by the time it's all said and done. But this is the basics of pace counting. It's really what I wanted to accomplish in this video. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our business, all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.